Welcome to the Brand Lab series from AE Marketing Group. This week, AE Marketing Group CEO Brian Walker talks to Latane Conant from 6Sense.
So Latane, I'm thrilled that you could be on the Brand Lab series today. I've gotten to know you over the last year. I really admire you. And I've also had the opportunity to work alongside many CMOs. And I've interviewed a few here on the Brand Lab series as well. And one thing that I actually find common about them, at least the most successful ones, is that they're uncommon. It's a challenging role. And I feel like some of the best ones have a really diverse background. So as we get started, why don't you tell a little bit about your background and your journey to the C-suite for our audience?
Sure. So I do on paper have an interesting background from CPA to consulting to sales. And we were joking earlier about me being a recovering software saleswoman to ultimately CMO. I think what a lot of people probably don't know is I was, as a child, dyslexic and really struggled in school. And the reason I bring that up is I have taken on a variety of different roles. And what I think has helped is at an early age, I learned how to overcome and how to think about things differently and how to, I call it grind it out, but just work hard to make things happen. And so, whether it's CMO, whether it's GM, whatever kind of needs to get done, I'm always game. And I think that experience gave me a lot of confidence to be able to just go and make stuff happen.
So I love the fact that you talk about getting your hands dirty, and I want to talk a little bit about customer experience later. But I want to talk about another area that I think brings a lot of sales and marketing together, and it's certainly an emerging area of marketing, and that's ABM. So talk about how you see account-based marketing really impacting brands today, and what are some things that maybe some executives should look out for?
Yeah, so I think, when I think about ABM, it's really the transformation that I think B2C has already been through about that, it's the age of the customer, focus on customer experience, hyper-personalization, digital experience. So that's aggressively hitting us as B2B marketers, and it's called, or what we're calling it is ABM. And I think a lot of people are attempting to do it. I think it's hard to really do it right. And I liken ABM, and the metaphor I like to think about is a surprise party. So if you're going to throw a surprise party for someone, you need to know where they are. You need to know where they want to go, or a place that you can get them to. You need to know all their friends. You need to know what they like. You really need to know a lot about them if you're going to throw a great surprise party. And I think that's the challenge with ABM, is for people really to have the data and the insights to be able to pull through and bring customers along that journey. But the ones that do it, it's really separating, I think, winners from losers today in B2B marketing.
So earlier this year, with Forrester naming 6Sense a leader kind of in the wave of the predictive space, and you kind of layer the predictive with the account-based marketing, I mean, it plays right into your surprise party analogy. So talk a little bit about the 1-2 punch, that then having some of the predictive analytic capabilities with the account-based marketing, and how that can really add to value of marketing.
Sure. So I like to say that when you think about your ABM journey, think long and hard about the A, which is the account. And that's where this predictive engine that 6Sense always has been legendary at, and always kind of top of the Forrester wave and created so much value for customers. And so being able to marry knowing who's ready, knowing who's already going out to market for what you do, picking up on those digital signals, and then being able to marry that with a beautiful orchestration platform to then target and engage is really the 1-2 punch that you talked about.
Prior to 6Sense, though, and you alluded to them just a little bit earlier, you were global CMO of Aperio. We've had a number of CMOs on before, a few at the global level. But when you're talking about scaling and being at a global CMO level, that's a tough job. Talk a little bit about what that's like.
Well, I'm going to start with the personal side of it. I think I've really benefited as a person getting to know other global cultures. And it's really hard to not, I think, become more introspective and just more globally aware when you're out in these markets. And that's been one of the favorite things about my career so far. From a job perspective, it is challenging. When I think about being successful, you have to, first of all, I think, really have a great core established, especially from a brand perspective. So one of my goals when we went into new markets was I always wanted to be authentically Aperio, but authentically Japanese, or authentically British, or authentically French. And so you have to know what are those aspects of the brand that you don't want to compromise, and you want to make sure that authenticity of the brand comes through, but at the same time in those markets that localization is critical. So you have to have the core and know what you're going to compromise and not compromise as you roll out brand and programs globally. I think it's also absolutely critical to invest in local talent. Almost think about it as a go, no go. You know, if you can't make that leap and think about at least a plan that has some local talent, it's going to be really hard to be successful in those markets. And then third is just, you know, a commitment to get out and be in those markets. And, you know, it's always challenging because you lose a lot of time, jet lag, things like that. And, you know, sometimes it'd be like, well, it's only 1 or 2 meetings in this event and somebody else could maybe handle it. But I always found when I invested in being out in those markets, not only did it impact me hugely personally, but it's a huge, huge value to the team and to the customers there. And that's how you learn about really what needs to happen in that market.
Well, I remember the last time we were here together, you were getting ready to jet off for like a 14-city Nordic tour of Europe. And I know you've been thousands of miles since then as well. You talked a little bit about really having that local flavor, both from a brand perspective, but also from a talent perspective. And I think one of the things that also must raise is kind of managing a dispersed and global workforce and a remote workforce and leading those teams. I think more and more, whether you're global or even national, you know, the desire is I want to have the best people on my team sometimes, irregardless of where they might be.
Sure.
But I think that creates a little bit of a challenge and a skill that a lot of leaders maybe don't have. Talk a little bit about your success in terms of leading a team that's more dispersed, and especially in that case, global.
Sure. So yeah, I always say I don't want necessarily local talent or office talent. I want the best talent. There are some keys to success, and I was fortunate enough to spend 7 years at Aperio, where I don't think a company does it better than Aperio, quite frankly. And what I learned there is a few things. One, video. Video is critical. It just is a great way to have the personal connection and be able to somewhat simulate being together. The other thing is collaboration tools. So I always thought about, we used Google at Ariba or at Aperio, and you know, my hangout was my office, basically, like the office doors are open. And being able to quickly chat or hop on a video right from there really simulates that kind of office feel, as well as being able to collaborate on documents and work together in the cloud. I think that's huge. So investing in the right collaboration tools to set people up for success, really important. I think as a leader, if you want to manage a remote global team, you do have to be more thoughtful about a strategic plan and have some sort of planning methodology. We used the V2 Mom at Aperio, which worked well. It doesn't really matter which one you use, but it's important to be very, very thoughtful about what that plan is, make sure you're planning openly, people are bought in, people understand their role in that plan. And then metrics. So, I'm pretty open about saying, I don't care if you're in Timbuktu or a coffee shop or at your house or at the office. If you're making it done, if you're getting it done and you're hitting your metrics, like, God bless. And if you can do it in 2 hours versus 20, again, God bless. So really knowing what success is, so that people can measure and strive for that, and you're more focused on that than maybe the FaceTime or seeing people.
Well, it's interesting how you talked a little bit about how technology can connect the teams. And I want to come back to technology, especially since we're both former ex-software salespeople.
Yes.
I think what's so interesting back when I know I was selling, almost 20 years ago now, everything really would go to the CIO. Nowadays, there's so much technology that's really tied to the CMO's success and some of the MarTech success. Talk a little bit about maybe what excites you in terms of how technology can continue to improve marketing, or maybe even, which is also something I know we were just chatting about, the challenge of managing so many different marketing applications as a CMO.
Sure. So honestly, the MarTech landscape has become just complete chaos. It's incredibly chaotic. And there's an amazing amount of innovation going into new MarTech apps, which is fabulous. But at some point, we need to see a few leaders emerge with more of a platform approach. When I think about the modern B2B marketeer and the fact that to have even the most basic tech stack, like the most basic bare bones, you need no less than 5 or 6 apps. And to have a great one, it's probably 15 or 20 apps. And that's not even thinking about data and services to kind of scrub and enrich data. It's overwhelming. And we're actually spending too much time, in my opinion, on tech, evaluating tech, putting it in, ripping it out. And so I'm really, really excited for in the next 18 months, leaders to emerge with that platform approach that are going to continue to innovate and bring a better experience for us as marketeers, so we can really focus on the personalization, the campaigns, the creativity, the engagement, being out with customers, those things versus just technology.
Well, I kind of want to build on that, because the same way technology has really shifted a lot and fallen onto a CMO's plate, so has customer experience. And you talked a lot about earlier on, like being out on some of the front lines, being at some of the shows, taking some booth hours. You just mentioned again the need to kind of have that personalization. Talk about the importance of customer experience today. And I know that sometimes different organizations have different leaders kind of running that, but I think it's really an enterprise issue. But talk a little bit about customer experience through the lens of a CMO.
Sure. It's a critical part of the function. I guess philosophy-wise, I'll share a little insight into kind of my philosophy and how I think about it. I always, in the back of my mind, have 2 brands rolling through my head, and they're both brands I love, and they're B2C brands, but I have SoulCycle and I have Peloton. And I think about those 2 brands, both amazing, off the charts customer experience, love them both, but one is built for scale, one is built for accessibility, and one has a much bigger TAM than the other. And so I always think about, when I'm building customer experience, am I building a Peloton or am I building a SoulCycle? And so that's just important for me, and one of those distinctions I always think about. And then thinking more directly in the space, I think more and more customer experience is not just about your own technology, but about the ecosystem that you build around your technology. And if you look at Salesforce, they've done an amazing job of building, multi-billion-dollar ecosystem around their technology. And specifically, that ecosystem has to include your customers. So how are you building customer community? How are they part of educating each other? How are you making sure they have the right training and learning and understanding of what you're doing? How do you kind of almost get rid of the wall between yourself and your customer so they're part of your roadmap? They're part of training other people. They're really part of your product and your own customer experience. Another company I think that's doing a great job of this is GitLab. So they're a developer platform. Most of their platform is built by their customers. So what an amazing kind of ecosystem they've been able to create. So those type of modern approaches to customer experience, I think, are the ones that are going to survive.
Yeah, I would say that co-creation with your customers, your potential customers, some of your partners is an absolute key thing in the area of customer experience that you'll see some of the leading brands do. But I think there's also a little bit of hesitancy about letting some of the walls down in terms of that. But I think it's one of the best ways to think of things that you maybe otherwise wouldn't have thought of. And I think in a hyper-competitive industry, it really helps build some loyalty, which I know is tough to get at today. So kind of along the lines of the technology, the customer experience, some of the emerging things that we've talked about today. At 6Sense, earlier this year, you acquired ZenIQ, which really kind of creates an incredible 1-2 punch now of predictive with ABM, which we talked a little bit about. So what can we expect in the future at 6Sense? I know you guys have been getting a lot of praise on some of the Forrester waves. You've had great growth. Have a sharp as a stick CMO. So
that's yet to be determined.
But what can we expect in the future at 6Sense?
So we talked about ABM as a concept, and I talked about it being hard. And a lot of people are making attempts. Very few are mastering it. And I think that where 6Sense is they've done an amazing job from a technology perspective. Again, acquisition of ZenIQ, powered by predictive and AI, further investments to make it a great UI, UX, and customer experience. But what the market needs is really thought leadership around ABM. So why do it? What results can you expect? How do you measure success? What is the journey? So how do you get started? How do you kind of course that trajectory from laggard to leader? What are specific plays you run? Just because you bought the technology doesn't mean you know how to use it. So we're actually thinking about what are plays, like pre-built plays that people can go and run to be successful on the technology. And then the last, I think, critical thing about ABM, and you mentioned this earlier, is ABM is not just for marketing. And we need to really bridge the gap between sales and marketing. So I talked about the surprise party. You know what? When the party is happening, we need salespeople there to help us man the bar, to bring the food, to bring gifts. So they're a huge part of our surprise party. And so I think we're going to see a lot more focus and engagement from the sales side when we think about ABM in the future and 6Sense.
So we've talked a little bit about your roles in sales and tech, being a global CMO, jet setting all over the world for business and other reasons. You move very fast. You're tough to pin down. I'm so glad you could give me some time today. You've got a lot on your plate. So what keeps you hungry? What keeps you balanced?
So I love surprising people. And I especially love surprising people about themselves and what they're capable of. And, you know, we were talking earlier about how we just went on this lake vacation, and we taught 9 kids and 2 adults how to water ski. And to me, that was such a great metaphor for what I love. It's, you know, it's hard. You're going to fall a couple times. It's a little bit scary. But once you got it and you're up, it's like the most amazing feeling. And so, you know, I can think of so many examples in my professional life where, you know, I had a friend, Ashley Stepien, who went on maternity leave. She wasn't in marketing at the time. She was in another department. And I somehow got word that she wasn't going to come back. And she's an absolute rock star. And so I called her and I said, what's up? Why aren't you coming back? And she said, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. I don't think I can work it all out. I said, you've got this. You can do it. Work for me. I know you're capable. We will work around you. And she came back. Of course, she crushed it. She then went and had twins. Again, I don't think I can come back. I said, I'm going to promote you. You're going to come back. You can do this. And she's now gone on to have a hotshot CMO job at a really cool startup, and she's going to crush it there. And so, I think she surprised herself, and I loved seeing that. And so I'm excited about a lot more surprises for myself and for 6Sense.
So in our final minute or two, why don't we have a little fun with each other? Whenever time permits, I always like to kind of do a speed round.
Okay.
So I'll ask you a couple of rapid fire. You can ask me a couple of rapid fire if you want.
Okay.
So I'll go first, so I'll give you a few. So SoulCycle or Peloton? Pick one.
For the long haul, Peloton.
Okay. Favorite destination when traveling personally?
Paris, duh.
That's mine too. Favorite work destination when traveling globally?
Paris, double duh.
Go-to cocktail?
Tequila, but Casamigos, ideally. Fresh lime juice and club soda. It's delicious and low carb. What more can a girl ask for?
Favorite thing in your garden?
Oh yeah, I'm buck wild about my garden. Probably the hydrangeas. Just the big snowballs, gorgeous, look great as cut flowers. As long as the deer don't eat them all, it's fabulous.
When you're driving in your car in heavy traffic, what's your go-to music?
Oh, Fleetwood Mac. I love Fleetwood Mac.
All right. Any rapid fire for me?
What's your walk-up song?
My walk-up song, Thunderstruck by AC/DC.
Okay, that's a good one. Go-to dance move?
Mr. Roboto.
I'd like to see that.
That's in the outtakes.
Okay. Upcoming vacations?
So I have a goal to step foot on every continent in the next 5 years.
Ooh.
So kind of on the radar, I think I can try to combo two, which is South America and Antarctica. And I really want to hit Antarctica while I can still be very active and sleep in a little igloo, do some cross-country skiing. So I'd say those two are on the horizon.
Okay. Show you watch, but you don't want anyone to know you watch?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. Show I watch. For a marketer, I admittedly don't watch a ton of television, but I would probably say I can binge watch Schitt's Creek on Netflix for a good laugh, and it's a fast 15-20 minute show, which is about my attention span.
Okay. Dinner party nightclub?
Dinner party nightclub, probably RPM Steak, maybe Swift & Sons, or Bavette's.
Okay.
Cocktail, old-fashioned, good steak, and good company.
Gotcha.
So Latane, again, thank you so much for being on. You're full of wit, you're full of wisdom, you're smart as a whip. I love the time we get to spend together. I'm glad you could be on the Brand Lab series and share some of your own insight and experience with our audience. So it was a pleasure to have you on.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us in the Brand Lab today. We invite you to join us again as we continue our journey alongside today's most innovative and insightful brands. Until next time.